Hi everyone, welcome to a special episode of Sci-Fi Pulse Radio with your hosts from SFP-NOW and GenreTainment. I'm your co-host from GenreTainment, Marx Pyle, and I'm joined by...
I'm Ian Cullen. I host SFP-NOW and Sci-Fi Pulse Radio. And also joining us is my good friend Ben Cassidy, who writes most of the Star Trek content for Sci-Fi Pulse, and he's also a co-host on SFP-NOW. So what we're going to do here today is going to be talking about the best, the worst, and the most anticipated things. So best series, best films, worst series, worst films, and most anticipated films and TV series for 2021. So I think we should start off on a good note, Matt, and we'll start with the best series. And I think, in order to be fair, we should have about a couple of choices each.
And Julie couldn't join because she started feeling sick before this. So I've merged our two lists together. So just so you know, so there's a couple of them where I got a couple similar choices. Just so you know, I'm not trying to cheat.
Oh, it's okay. Well, when you're giving us Julie's choice, just go, well, my choice for series this year is
Yep, I'll do that. Okay.
I thought that was Miss Piggy there, Ian.
So that's how you think Julie sounds, huh? Interesting. I'll let her know.
Well, she doesn't sound like this. She don't sound like this at all.
Yeah. I think we should start positive. Yeah, because my worst lists are lower because, I just don't watch stuff I don't like, right? So... but yeah, so do you want to kick it off on the list?
As soon as he's new to it, you want to let Ben kick off with his two choices?
Sounds good.
Okay, Ben, it's over to you.
Thanks, guys. First, just a quick one. Yeah, a big get well soon to Julie. I'm sorry to hear that, Marx. We look forward to hearing Julie's selections too. I sort of have I think we all do. People sort of struggle with what's your favourite, what do you think's the best, and so I'm going to go with favourite because I think favourite is a bit more instinctive than best and sort of like analysing stuff. And I'm going to open the list with a series that Ian put me onto, which I hadn't watched. And I do think it's been one of the highlights of a difficult year in the entertainment industry. I've just finished watching last night the first series of Pennyworth, and I thought that was a really, really great show. I thought it was something different. As far as I'm aware, it's sort of like an American-made show, but it's set in Britain, sort of in the 60s. I'm a big Beatles fan, and, that's sort of really when popular culture as we know it kind of sort of started in the 60s in some ways. It's a bit of a general statement, but yeah, that's been a monumental show for me. It's a fantastic show. The guy that plays Jack Bannon, the guy that plays Alfred is really, really great, and the universe it's set in is great. So a big thanks to Ian who put me onto that. And what are your thoughts on it, Ian?
Well, what I liked about Pennyworth, and I'll let you have it. It was 2019 and it did go a little into 2000. It was 2019 it came out, this series. But I'll let you have it because the new series actually starts tomorrow. So... And and I do know that your other choice is probably likely to be 2020 anyway. But the reason it's actually set in the Batman universe, and it's kind of a prequel, telling the story of how Alfred met and came to be involved with the Wayne family. But it also gives you Alfred's backstory. His days in the military, in the army. And the series picks up where he's recently been discharged from the army, and he's running his own little sort of like for hire protection business, and he gets hired by Bruce Wayne's father in order to sort of like find his sister, I think it is, and one path leads to another, and you get this really, really cool sort of like 60s vibe to it, but it's set in the UK. It's set in a world where the English and the Allies didn't win the Second World War. So the UK is kind of like it's polarized. It's much like it's as much a comment on today's society as it is on the story sort of thing. Because you've got two polar opposites. You've got the extreme left wing and the extreme right wing, and the two parties that are both for extremes are sort of like vying for power. And there's sort of like this huge power vacuum in the middle, which is pretty much where the characters of the series sort of function.
Is it a series you've watched yourself, Mark? Or
yeah, we watched it too. I caught a little bit of it last year when it came on, but I don't have Epics. Like I was using a free preview, but then I went ahead and got Epics. like a special deal for like a month to binge it. I thought at the time that second season was on there until I got it, and I was like, it's not out yet. But I went ahead and watched we both watched all of season 1. We really liked it quite a bit. What's funny though is like, we're like, of course we're in the US, and so we're just kind of like, what is true and not true of this history of the UK? It's like, they didn't do public executions or whatever, it took us a little bit longer to figure out, wait a minute, what's going on here? But it was, I love all of the slang. You have to tell me how accurate that slang is. And then I was surprised by how good it was, because when I first heard that Pennyworth was coming out, I was just like, are you serious? Who wanted a prequel, like, backstory of, Alfred Pennyworth? Come on. And it's like, we're going to have Maul Kent, the Adventures of Maul Kent when she was a teenager or something now? Like, what's going on? but it actually turned out to be quite a good show. And I'm really eager to see season 2 and see what they do. If you just had a different name for Alfred and you had Martha and Thomas, yes. If they had different names, it could be like its own completely different show, because it doesn't really have too many direct ties to Batman or anything, which is just fine. It works fine. It reminds me of a little bit of, it's got like that kind of spy action feel sometimes, of
little James Bond.
A little James Bond. And then it's also got a little bit of that weirdness that like The Prisoner or something had back then.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's why you pick. I was going to mention that you picked up on sort of like the political element to it. And I think what makes the show so good is that all that stuff is going on in the background, but it's not like a political drama where it's sort of like constant power play and all you're seeing is that, because that could soon make it quite boring. It's a very sharp, snappy, action-based show, and that aspect of it reminds me of like a lot of the shows I watched as a youngster growing up on reruns from the 70s, like, I don't know, The Avengers, that sort of thing. Even stuff like The Saint and everything like that. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those shows, Marx, or...
I've seen The Avengers.
Yeah, it's got that 60s feel to it. You sort of feel like it's got elements of a lot of stuff from British culture. Sometimes you think you're watching like a show about the Craze twins or something, then you think it's James Bond. It's sort of got all different aspects, and then there's just that supernatural element that's going on underneath it that makes you think, yeah, this belongs in the Batman universe, definitely.
Yeah, what I also about it was the episode titles were basically iconic people from the 60s. It had Shirley Bassey.
Yeah, and that's another strength of the show. I think it's Baroness Orksey and it's Felicity Kendall plays fantastically, and Alistair Crowley. I think Alistair Crowley died in 1946 or 7, maybe even 1945. Anyway,
it was 43.
1943, there you go. But the thing is, it's an alternate universe, so, it doesn't really matter, and that's the sort of creative scope that it has. And I think it's a show that really reminds us how much scope there is to make stories if you use sort of like alternate universes and things like that from comics. There's just the comic book world at the moment is being done to death by all stuff, but you can still make a good show if you get your thinking cap on,
So do you have a second choice, Ben?
Yeah, I think another show that you put me onto, Ian, I'm seeming to be the Ian Cullen suggestion show here, isn't it? But it's got to go. I've got to go with Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol. Yeah, and now I feel like gazumped Ian on 2 of his choices. So apologies for that, Ian.
No, good choices.
That's it. I don't think I've watched as much as you, so they're the shows that I've watched recently, both of which have been put onto by yourself, and. Yeah, again, very different from Pennyworth, but they are both brilliant in their own ways. But I think what really works well with Doom Patrol is it's taking a tried and tested formula, as in reluctant heroes or failure to heroes, but it's still managing to tell its own story and not end up looking something like Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever else. It's sort of fresh,
Doom Patrol is one of my favorites too, and I like how it's taken some of the weirdest stories from the comic books of Doom Patrol and it's given it a unique tone and feel to other superhero shows out there. And I like all those characters. They do a great job making them multidimensional, and like the story twists and plots, and it's got such a edgy sense of humor and stuff. So I think it's definitely Doom Patrol is one of my favorite superhero shows of all time currently on, I think.
Definitely. I think I've always found when I watch stuff, not always, but at least in 1 or 2 episodes, I can probably sort of guess some of what's going on, but you've no chance of doing that with Doom Patrol. And I don't know, perhaps some people think it's a bit too weird at times, but for me, it really shows you if you care for the characters on something, it doesn't matter how weird something is. And, suspension of disbelief sometimes is almost secondary. So you're just being really sort of bought in on an emotional level to these sort of individuals in the show.
And they're all very, very messed up individuals as well. They've all got their own sort of like hang-ups, and that's what attracts me to it is just how messed up these characters actually are, and yet somehow like a dysfunctional family they manage to come together when it counts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a highlight, and it's one that I'll just say one more thing about it, and that's I'm very much looking forward to the third series next year, and I think you were saying, Ian, that you reckon it might drop in sort of like maybe Easter, spring, March, April.
That'd be my guess, because the last few series were sort of like roundabout, sort of like late February, early March. Also, I'm not sure if they're going to do a third season of one of my choices, which is Titans. Which is based on the Teen Titans. Because that's usually airing around about now. It builds up to Christmas and then sort of like has a little bit of a break and then finishes off its run after Christmas. And usually what happens is Doom Patrol takes over from that. But there's lots happened this year with the pandemic and the DC streaming series season, channel. I think that's kind of like being discontinued and it's all going to HBO Max. So, the future of these series is a little bit in the air, but I do know that there's a season 3 of Doom Patrol because I've already announced it.
Yeah, they got all moved to HBO Max now. I've been watching it on there now, and they've already got some shots from season 3 of Titans, so it's definitely coming out. I'm not sure exactly when, but they got like a new costume that's been showing off for Starfire. So, you'll definitely get Titans, and I'm pretty sure they said that they're going to do season 3 of Doom Patrol. So, because Doom Patrol was their first, was the first one that they moved over from DC Universe to HBO Max. Technically, they were on both at the same time. It premiered on HBO Max, then the next day, I believe, it showed up on DC streaming. But yeah, everything DC streaming, all the originals are now on HBO Max. So
I think April Balby, I can't remember how you pronounce her name, but I think April Balby, who plays Rita Farr, I haven't seen Titans, but I believe she was in 1 or 2 episodes of it.
No, I think she was in 1 episode of it, because they basically did 1 episode in the first season of Titans, where they actually meet the Doom Patrol.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I think it's supposed to be an alternate version of them, because in that one, it may not have been that plan originally, but in that one, Beast Boy is a member and he leaves to go to Titans. And they had a different actor playing.
Coda.
Yeah, and they the tone, like they had the actors that played the other characters, but the tone and their relationships were a little different. Once they finally did the TV show, I feel like they decided to just ignore that a little bit and go in a different direction a little bit. So, and when Crisis of Infinite Earths happened and they were assigning Earths, like the new multiverse, they gave different Earth numbers for Doom Patrol and Titans. So
and they did actually. That was a good thing about the multiverse crossover event last year. The CW did was that they actually did include the DC streaming shows, and I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, because they wiped out the old multiverse, merged a new Earth so Supergirl could be in the same Earth, and then they, unbeknownst to them, I don't know if they figured it out yet or not, but there's a new multiverse, and we, the viewers, got to see the numbers, and they had like Swamp Thing and all the different DC streaming ones in there. So,
oh man, I'm so disappointed that I cancelled Swamp Thing. I didn't get another run because that was so good.
I know, that's the one DC show that did get canceled for sure. But it's doing really well on CW now because they replayed it on CW and it's like a ratings hit for them.
So, yeah, but we don't want to see CW start making Swamp Thing because it'll completely ruin it.
Well, it's better than nothing. It matters what they do to it, of course, but at least that's, maybe they'll think about bringing back that character now. If not that interpretation, maybe they'll do something with it. Kind of like Constantine kind of has survived on and because of the fans. I don't know. We'll see.
I think just to sort of like my final comment on Doom Patrol is I found like Cliff's story arc is almost like a little bit of a meta thing with Brendan Fraser, who had a lot of stuff going on in his personal life. And I was delighted to see the successful return of Brendan Fraser because, I've enjoyed a lot of his movies when I was sort of like 14, 15 in the 90s. And
I just enjoyed the whole Danny the Street, and I thought the episode Sex Patrol was absolutely fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. Yeah, I think they're all really great actors, and it's great to see Brendan Fraser back. And I think, oh my gosh, I'm terrible with names today. The multiple personality character, yes, Crazy Jane, yes. I kept having Typhoid Mary. I was going to say call her Crazy Mary. I'm like, that's not right. I think that actress especially is just brilliant because of how she can transform, her acting performance between all those characters. I think that's a dream job for an actor, to be able to essentially play, unlimited, potentially up to 60 or whatever different characters in one. And she does a great job.
Yeah, I mean, Crazy Jane's actually my favorite character from the series, so like I just love her character.
I think she might be mine too, especially with season 2. Season 1, not as much, just because she was so against everything a lot of times. I think I like Robot Man. I like Cliff's character a little bit more in season 1 than I did in season 2. They're all really good, but they kind of flow.
Oh, season 2 Robot Man, that parody that they did, him and Cyborg.
Yes, yeah.
Steven Stone.
That was brilliant. Steven Stone.
That was brilliant. Yeah.
Oh dear, that was just I absolutely wet myself after that. That was brilliant.
Yeah, that's what makes that show great. Yeah. So, what else is your favorite, Ian? I'll let you all guys do yours, so then I can see what of our list was left.
I was actually really surprised, but I really enjoyed Stargirl.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that series. I love the sort of like layered relationship between Stargirl and the other character in it. I can't remember his name. The one that's playing a stepfather.
Yep.
I'm awful with names today. I'm going to have to bring IMDb up to get the names, I think.
Stripes is his, it's super
Stripes,
nice. Yeah.
Right, but I like that. I thought the villains in that was so good. The acting was absolutely brilliant. And, with it being about teenage superhero, the danger is that it can get a bit too teen-centric with all the sort of like soap opera elements of the relationships and stuff like that. And it didn't get like that at all. It focused more on her journey of becoming Stargirl and the journey that she goes on in trying to form, a new, more modern version of the Justice Society, with people that she meets in school. And, that overall arc was really good. And I just thought the villains were fantastic in it. And it's kind of a shame that they killed off the main villain.
It is, but they have a couple of really potentially awesome villains coming up. So Eclipso and, what was the other one? Shade. So
yeah,
but yeah, I agree. It was I watched it on DC streaming first, and DC Universe, and I was surprised by how good it was. I think the CW shows, to make clear, I love the CW superhero shows, of course. Jeff and I have done DC Action Hour for a couple of years, and we do love those shows. But they they're getting a little long in the tooth, I guess. So some of them are getting a little predictable. So I was a little unsure about Stargirl. I feel like we really needed that right now with so many other ones. But I was pleasantly surprised. I thought that was a really well done character. I love all the sequences with her and her staff, like how they use that. It's really cool. And
that's also the relationship that's forming between her and the staff. Actually, Ben, that's another show we need to check out, Stargirl.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I'll have to sort of sit this one out in terms of discussing it because I've not watched it. So thanks for the spoiler there, Ian. Never mind, though.
Good job, Ian. There's lots of villains. Who knows which one dies?
I was going to ask you, Ian. It can be difficult to sort of like watch series where you've got to catch up with like 3 or 4 or 5 or stuff like, the big crossover event with the D stuff. I've seen none of that stuff. And it's like, it's too, your time's too limited to catch up with all of them. So I was going to say, what other series do you know that where there's maybe 1 or 2 seasons that have been? So I can look forward to hopefully a second series next year. So yeah, Stargirl is one over Christmas that I'll definitely get onto.
And the good thing about it, Ben, is it's only about, I think there's only 10 episodes of it, Matt, isn't there? Is it just 10?
Is it 10 or 13? I can't remember.
I think it was 10 or 13. It wasn't 26 episodes like a regular series.
Yeah.
I think that's what the CW needs to start doing, actually. They need to do away with 23, 26 episode runs and just tell a story over 10 or 15 episodes.
I agree with you. I think now there's certain shows, they're fine, but like with the CW ones, because they have the shared universe, they start to cannibalize their own viewers that way if you're not careful, because there's so many shows. And I think they would benefit from, being smart about how like rotating some in and out and then having shorter seasons. They go to make those shows stronger, and they could get, and I don't think they would cannibalize their own numbers a little bit, because they got to be doing that a little bit at this point. Because I love those shows, but I've gotten to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, some of them I'll just wait until they're on Netflix, because I just can't keep up with it. It's too many shows to try to watch of one franchise every week. There's so many other good shows out there that I just...
I review them every week.
Yeah.
I think it's volume. I think what I'm starting to notice is that, the original Star Trek series and Supernatural shows like that, traditionally between 22 and 25, but because of the amount of series that are being made, I think people are starting to have to sort of like cut it down to between 10 and 15, because people just haven't got the time to watch everything.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, it was fine for Supernatural, but that's the only show in that franchise. So, if I'm really a Supernatural fan, that's the only show I'm asked to watch, There's not like three other spinoffs or something. But one good thing we haven't said that you probably don't know about Stargirl is that Stargirl, even though it's on CW, is actually on its own Earth in the multiverse. So you don't have to watch any of the other ones to follow it.
Oh, cool, yeah. I think that's it. With all the... I was sad to sort of miss the Crisis of Infinite Earths. I'm a big Superman fan. But again, like you said, even if there was 9 series or something, like if there was 10 episodes of series, I might just slug it out. But I don't know when I'm going to be able to watch like 220 episodes of Arrow to catch up. It's just not going to happen.
You could skip Arrow. The way they ended it, I was like, no. I shouldn't say that, but
the only reason I watched Arrow was because of the hot babes, because of the Ra's al Ghul's daughters, those were the hot babes, the villains, not the good guys. The villains were actually hotter than the good guys.
Didn't think Black Canary was hot? Is that what you're saying? None of them?
I didn't really have anything going on for Black Canary. My heart belongs to the Al Ghul sisters.
Yeah, well, there's a new Superman show coming out, so you may want to check that out.
I think that's where I will pick up DC Universe from there, because I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to start watching it afresh without having to know too much about all the others. Do we know also if Stargirl's been renewed at all? Any news?
Yeah. But it's not being made by DC now, it's being made by CW, which means it could actually end up changing a little bit, so it might not be as good as the first season.
We'll see. It's got the same producer, so who knows?
Yeah, but tonally, they might dumb it down a little bit for the CW audience,
Yeah, it's a risk maybe they can do sometimes. Because I think Supergirl took a hit a little bit in the writing when they moved over to CW. I think they adjusted, but you could tell a difference in it. And to be fair, not to pick on the writers or anything like that, because I don't know them or anything, and I know how hard it is to write television, but it could be just as much about budget and stuff too, that they had less sets to play with and special effects, so I had to adjust to that.
Okay, well, my second choice is one that Ben can come in on, and you can come in on, and it's kind of a controversial choice in a sense, because there's many people love it as there are those that hate it, but I'm going to go with Star Trek Picard. I really enjoyed that series this year, and I got so much more from it by reading the prequel material that came out in form of the novel Picard and Last Best Hope, and the comic book series. But I really enjoyed Picard. I thought it was a pretty decent show. I kind of like the dark, edgy characters, although I do find it kind of questionable. But we're suddenly seeing people swear and smoke in the in the Star Trek universe. So it doesn't really seem to fit with everything we've seen before. It's like somebody just and said, "Hey, our Federation and Federation citizens, here's an encyclopedia of swear words. You can say fuck now."
Yeah, it's just, it was edited from the perspective of Wesley Crusher before. That's what it was. The kids, swearing, or not kids swearing. What am I saying? But the swearing words in. Yeah. I don't think it's that controversial in my opinion, because I would also. So I've been a hater lover, I guess, of Star Trek Discovery when it came out. Season 1 was like, man, I don't know how I feel about the show. In season 1, there's some good episodes. There was I hate what they did with the Klingons. It was like the tone was overplaced. They messed up the canon. I don't know why Star Trek people keep wanting, for so long they've just been like, we want to go backwards in time, but we want cooler gadgets and we want to change everything. And just like, well, go forwards then. Go forwards. You do whatever you want forwards. Why do you want to mess with what's in the past? And honestly, how many people like our age or younger are going, boy, I want more Adventures of Kirk, you know? They're not watching the original Star Trek. They probably were raised on Voyager or The Next Generation or something. Anyway, but I loved Picard. There were a few questionable moments. Julie and I talked about the show on GenreTainment, and well, actually, you were with us on that episode, right?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I think we actually all agreed that a lot of the fans that complain about Picard and saying it's shat all over their childhoods and stuff like that, they're kind of seeing Star Trek: The Next Generation through rose-tinted glasses. Mm-hmm. Because there were many, many times where the crew of the Enterprise did questionable things in Star Trek: The Next Generation. You know,
oh yeah,
it's just so like it's just more. It probably feels more close to home now than it did back then, because so like. When Star Trek: The Next Generation was made, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have access to as much information as we do now. And I think the edgiest stuff, the whole the notion of Picard separating from the Federation and stuff like that, is quite believable. It's even more believable when you read that prequel book and you read what happened in that prequel book, as Ben will tell you.
Yeah, cheers, Ian. Yeah, I think it's as good a time as any to sort of come in on that. It's a good prompt, that, because I read that book and got a much more enjoyment from the series. It's certainly not an action-based book, which some people sort of like thought it should have been. A lot of people, had issues with the book. But as we know, I interviewed the author. I interviewed Ivan McCormack. He was a massive sort of fan of the show. And I believe her favourite series was sort of DS9, which is definitely the most sort of political and cerebral show of, the Star Trek canon for me. And I think most fans would probably agree with that. And those aspects of it are coming out. I think to sort of comment on what you were saying about TNG and people saying it crapped over the childhood and stuff like that. The truth is, now there is so much television, and I touched on this when I was talking about, there being 24 episodes of series to 10, that we're all guilty of expecting everything to be incredible straight away because of the sheer amount of competition. And it's something we've got to be very cautious of, because there were a few standout episodes of TNG, for example. I'll sort of focus on that in the first 2-3 seasons, but it didn't really hit its stride. It didn't start winning awards, and the most talked about episodes didn't come till the 4th season. And I think as a society, we're becoming extremely demanding that everything's got to be brilliant, and it's got to be brilliant right now, or I'll watch something else. And these people work really, really hard, pouring their heart into telling stories. As Mark said, it's not easy to write or to write for TV. And, we need to give things a bit more patience. And it's a shame that we're moving towards sort of like, we're almost not able to do that because there's so much saturation with shows. And that's, maybe it was odd to see Picard season 1, but the second season, you'll be used to it, You'll be used to seeing things a bit different than they were, a bit swearing, drinking, I don't know, a more sort of Tarantino-esque universe, for want of better terminology. But yeah, I feel very strongly about being overly demanding on like everything being incredible right now. I think it's sort of a rocky road to go down.
The only thing that got me about Picard a little bit was in The Next Generation, he describes Earth as a utopia. He says we no longer have the need for things. We're no longer defined by our possessions and whatnot. We're defined by sort of like the betterment of ourselves. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That being the case, how come Raffi was living in a trailer park and he's in a vineyard? And obviously it's his family vineyard, but you kind of had the notion that there was still a class system in play there, which kind of contradicted what he said about the Federation and the way they lived on Earth. So I'm kind of wondering if the events of the book kind of sort of brought back a class system to some extent within Earth society.
I think it's definitely we're definitely moving towards the being stories, and Discovery season 3 ties in with Picard. I think they have done a very good job of making those two shows similar in tone in terms of what's going on in the Federation and things like that. But I think that, a lot of these shows, I think it was in its third season, TNG, when, Europe was changed in 1989 when the Berlin Wall came down, the fall of communism. And I think everybody thought, this is it. This is our utopia now. Wow, like, we're no longer living in fear of being eradicated by nuclear bombs. And the reality is that there's new threats, there's different threats, a different type of sort of darkness in the world. And I think it's nowadays we're seeing with stories a lot more of a complicated view. And I think for now, story-wise, we've done with everything being utopic and everything being brilliant, because the world around us is far from that. It's a dark place to live, and that's bound to impact upon the stories that are being told by writers, I think.
I'm just waiting for them to bring in an orange race of aliens called the Trump.
The Trumpity Trump. Gotta have a cooler name.
I think Donald Trump. Do you remember that? Do you remember that Star Trek episode, the original series episode, where they had the space hippies come on and they all had orange skin
Herbert.
The Hermans. Yeah, I think Donald Trump is a Herman. Yeah, but he's a Herman that broke bad and threw away his guitar.
Now we're seeing the back of him, we can finally get used to satire, because he single-handedly destroyed the concept of satire. There was nothing left to satirize once Donald Trump was the president.
Yeah.
Spitting did a pretty good job. In making the vice president the coronavirus. I thought that was pretty funny.
I to speak about your class thing. I forget who, one of the producers was asked a similar question about that, and they said, well, no matter what happens in our society, humans are still humans, and we have flaws. People will still get addicted to drugs occasionally, and and other things might happen. And I think for that character, she's at that point in her life, she's a little self-destructive. Like she's doesn't have a relationship with her son. She's got all these conspiracy theories going on. She's probably doing a few shady things, for money or whatever she's doing. I'm not sure. But that might be why she just decided to live somewhere out in the middle of nowhere and has such modest, living situations, perhaps. So that's the way I took it, at least.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it did actually make her quite an interesting character. And I remember at the time when we're going on about, people complaining about it, going on about vaping, and thought, for fuck's sake, watch Star Trek 3 and watch the bit in the bar with McCoy. You'll find people in the background, they're vaping. And there's actually a comment on it within the film, So, they had vaping in Star Trek, people. It's in Star Trek 3.
Yep, they invented vaping, apparently. So there you go.
Yeah,
but it's just, the thing is humans have the same potential flaws, and even if you got rid of greed because there wasn't money per se, there's still pride, that you want, you want to be an important person or seen well, and that could drive you to do things. And there's addiction to drugs or just pleasurable things, and those are all things that can still happen no matter what.
I think the big thing is that you can't, whatever ideology that you live in or under the auspices of, you can't live away from an ideology, and that's always going to mean that there are power dynamics at play. I remember when I was a kid, my dad's a history teacher, and I was about 8 or 9 and stuff. I was learning about Hitler at school and stuff, and I said, to my dad, why didn't he just sort of if he could do anything he wanted, he had a lot of power, why didn't he just get all the money and just be like the richest? And that was one of my first very big life lessons, he sort of said, because it wasn't about money, it was about power. And that's the crux of all sort of conflicts, stories, and conflict in stories, is that, you can eradicate money, you can even eradicate poverty and things like that, but you're still going to have people competing to be the most powerful,
Yep.
Yeah, it's still going to be a power vacuum.
Yeah, that's it. And I know we were talking about seeing that in Mandalorian as well, Ian. Sort of that's what we were chatting about, wasn't it? Seeing that, this idea of the good guys win after the end of Return of the Jedi and everything's all right isn't the case at all. And that's yet another example, of stories becoming more complicated and having to consider things differently than simple good guys versus bad guys struggle, good guys win.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm actually hoping Marx has picked The Mandalorian as one of his best shows, because I think we've got to discuss it, because it is one of the best shows this year again, for my money.
I think before we change topics, though, I do want to give a shout out to Discovery too, because I feel that this season of Star Trek Discovery feels like legitimate Star Trek. I feel like they finally figured it out how to make the show work.
It's getting there, yeah. It's absolutely getting there. I mean, the only thing I like to see is a little bit less emphasis on on Burnham and Saru, and a little more emphasis on the other members of the bridge crew, such as Dietmar and the other woman that she works up, they've got a big bridge crew there, and hardly any of it gets look in, because it's Stamets, Tingy, and Saru and Burnham that are getting all the drama.
Yeah, I agree. It was really bad in season 1, where it just I don't even know the names of half the crew, and they didn't seem interested in telling us. Like the one woman who's the almost full cyborg character, we knew almost nothing about her until season 2, whenever that episode was more focused on her when she was going to die. And I was like, man, it'd been nice to know this character a little bit longer if we could have gotten some kind of episode with her before this.
That was a mistake. Yeah, I thought killing off Ariam was a serious mistake. I felt, because she was potentially a very, very interesting and strong character.
Yeah, but dude, she was in danger of joining the Hitler Youth, with her being Aryan and that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was an interesting character, and then they kill her off. And I feel like the pilot, she's getting more terrible names, partly because we've seen so little of them.
Yeah,
it has the cybernetic implant. She seems like an interesting character too, and we're getting more of that of her in this season. But I feel like there's still so little, compared to. I know the original series is very heavy on Kirk, Spock, and Bones, but I felt like we got to know the rest of the cast a lot better in that series, for example, and definitely in TNG we got to know everybody really well. And it hasn't been quite as evenly handed out in Discovery, especially season 1, because it was so much about Burnham and everything. I think Star Trek excels whenever it's more about the ensemble cast.
Absolutely.
Especially so with a show like Discovery, because the whole thing that's screaming out is we're a crew of one and we're a family, and even maybe more than any other show. That unity seems to be there, but it's well, if it is, show us how you act with each other then. Otherwise, the others just look like spare parts. The last episode, or was it the week before? Not this week, the week before, where sort of Detmer, she's the one with the implant in her eye. She went off on this little sort of side mission, and it was cool to see, but it just seemed I can't care enough about you because I don't know anything about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got to give us more about these other characters and really, use the whole cast and stuff. I like the main characters, but
especially his death. They suggested that they were going to do that. I think it was in the first 2-3 episodes. I can't remember what episode. Second one, I think, where she sort of after the crash landing. You think something's really up with her, and you start thinking, okay, she's going to get a story arc out of this. Something's going to happen, but then it hasn't yet. Maybe it will.
Yeah, they're kind of they're strongly hinting at PTSD with her character, and and I think the sense of of the feeling of disorientation that you get with PTSD, because I've actually had experience with PTSD myself. They got it bang on, but what they've not got bang on is the nuances and how it can change a person's personality and stuff like that. And it's not working with Detmer because, as Ben's already pointed out, we don't really know her. And in order to care about a character, you need to know a little bit more about their internal life.
Yeah. You can't make a journey with them if you don't have essential details about. You need to know who they were before, who they want to become, and then watch that happen, essentially.
Yep, I think that's the only missing piece right now, because I think the missions and the feel and vibe and everything is really great in season 3.
First season was a complete car crash. The second series was a bit better, but I do feel that the third series, I was like, I can call this Star Trek and I can start to enjoy this now.
Yeah.
So hopefully it'll go from strength to strength,
Yeah, I hope so. And I love we're seeing the potential future of the Trill and what the United, Vulcan homeworld of Levi. And, those are really cool things to see. And then, cool advancements in technology and stuff. And, hearing about the Time Wars, they're pulling in all sorts of stuff from Picard and from the Kevlin or the Kelvin movie series and stuff. And, I think that's great that they're doing that.
Yeah, season 3 has done a really good job of incorporating old canonical things. And Ian and I would be fascinated because we have the same opinion. Do you think that dude, Carl, who was on the planet in last week's episode, was a Q, Marx?
I think it's very possible, from what we've seen. Of course, in the original series, they had a lot of Q-like characters before there was a Q,
Yeah, Tain and that.
Yeah, so it could be, it depends on if they could use one of them and pull them in, or it could just be a Q. I don't know. We'll see what they do.
I mean, it is getting better. It's Discovery, I think. It's it's now turned into a show that I kind of look forward to watching every week. Whereas before, I was kind of like watching it in the hopes I'd just get better, you know?
Yeah, well, with season one, I watched the first episode because it was on TV, and then I think I forget how I did it, but maybe I did a free trial of CBS All Access, and I just binged the rest of the season, maybe, and then got rid of it. And then season two, I actually start watching it, and I actually stuck with CBS All Access until the whole season was done, because it was good enough to at least watch it because of Captain Pike and Spock and stuff, and it was an improvement in a lot of ways. And then with season three, they had me hooked because of Picard, and then Lower Decks I stuck around for that. And then Discovery came on. I was like, oh, okay, I actually like this. This is actually up there now with actual Star Trek shows. So I can actually stick with this and watch this. So let's get more of this. So
okay, well, Matt, so what are your top 2 TV series?
So I'm gonna say Mandalorian for last.
I think you should actually have 4, because obviously you've got to count Julie's choices in there. So
okay. Let's start with these two that lean a little more towards Julie's. So The Good Place is a show that both Julie and I have quite enjoyed that wrapped up this season. I don't know if you guys watched that or not.
I watched like 4 or 5 episodes of the first season, and I was kind of getting into it, but got distracted away with other stuff being on. So I have seen it, and it is quite funny.
That's a show that is, I think, everybody who wants to write science fiction or high concept stories should give it a shot and watch it, because it takes a concept that could have gotten old, but they put a new twist on it every season to really keep it going and build upon the overall story and the characters. And, the first season's big twist was really a big twist. The rest of them are still big, but they're not quite as like, oh my gosh, and it wrapped up so well, and like that everything tied together. It's like reading a book series or something, of like a 4-book saga or something. Everything tied together so well at the end, and it was very touching to what happened to all the characters, and wrapped up everything really, really well. So if you watch the last season versus the first season, you'd be like, wow, how did they get here with it? And I thought that was really well done, because it's funny, but also they talk about the author, the writer, or writers perhaps, really put a lot of thought into like, well, what could afterlife be, and what's a good person, what's a bad person, what makes a good person a bad, how's that? How can you judge someone and score them fairly? And how would a system look like that? And what could be the flaws in a system like that? And and they mention a lot of, in funny ways, philosophy type stuff that at first I thought it was just a throwaway joke thing, but then as you go through it, you see that they did a lot of research on the philosophy, and they come up with really funny twists on what an afterlife could be like, and things that maybe people don't think about, that I thought was really interesting. So it's a funny show that actually is very high concept, very thought provoking in many ways. So and they ended it the way they wanted to with season 4. And I think it wrapped up. It was one of the best endings, or one of the best endings, only top 10 endings of a show, sci-fi or fantasy related, I've seen.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's only half-hour episodes, so it's pretty easy watch to fit in. But I think the premise, Marx, is right. This woman, she gets into heaven. Is it? It's kind of heaven.
Yeah, they call it the good place, but yeah,
and they call it the good place. But she's not. She's not really deserving of it, in the sense that she's very flawed, and she's sort of like, as soon as she gets there, she's starting to break all the rules.
Yeah, that's the thing. She's afraid that, like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be here. This was a mistake. How can I keep this secret? And then she befriends another character who was a philosophy expert in philosophy and in his life, but he also had some issues too, where he can't ever make decisions about things. He tries to see all sides and make the perfect answer, and that can sometimes be a problem. But he tries to train her or teach her about good and evil and how to be a good person. So that way she can, I guess, fake it till you make it, right? And so there's a lot of plot twists and that happen. I don't want to ruin anything because there's big ones every season, at least, or more than one sometimes. But it's definitely one worth checking out. If you watch season 1, because they are short, half-hour episodes and short seasons. If you watch all of season 1 and you're not going like, oh, I really gotta watch season 2, then maybe it's not for you. But it is quick to watch. You can binge it on Netflix, and it's a pretty cool, funny, and also thought-provoking type show.
Mm-hmm.
not one I've seen, but again, I look forward to watching that. Perhaps over the holidays, if I run out of stuff to watch, I'll give that a go.
Cool. So another show that we were both enjoying, I'll put it on Julie's list maybe. Or that was on her list too, but I'll make her one of her top two choices. It's something we're watching now that we're not 100% done with yet, so maybe we'll be disappointed. I don't know, but we're really enjoying it right now because we got HBO Max recently, and partly because I really wanted to watch Lovecraft Country, and because I like Lovecraftian type stuff.
That's another show that I wish I'd put on my list.
Yeah, and we're almost done with the season. We're not 100% done yet, but that's been a really good show. It's right up there with I thought Watchmen last year was amazing. I think it's right up there with a great a number of black actors and talking about kind of history through the black lens or POV of being a black person in America. And while also integrating all these Lovecraftian kind of concepts in unique ways. And I found it really good. It's really good. It's got some scary moments, got some gross up moments, got some just off the wall crazy moments. And the acting's really good, and the stories are something a little different than we've ever seen before.
We reviewed Lovecraft County on Sci-Fi Post.
Good. Yeah, I think that's a really great show. HBO does good stuff, and I thought Watchmen was amazing last year, and this was on par with it. So is it going to get renewed, or is it like a limited series? Do you know? I
don't know. It kind of ended.
Well, don't tell me about the ending, because I haven't seen the ending yet.
All right. Well, I don't know. I think it should be renewed, but I think if it is renewed, it'll be different again, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think it should be different. But I hope they have another season because I think Lovecraftian lore isn't used enough in TV, and it's really good stuff to use. And I don't know. I haven't read the book yet. I do have a copy of the book on my Kindle, and I started reading it, but then I stopped when I heard the series was coming out. They didn't want to ruin it because it's very rare that I read a book and then I can enjoy the series or movie that's based on. Usually, it's always a disappointment compared to the book. So I like to do it in reverse if I can. So I'm going to give the book a read after I'm done with this season and see. Because I almost feel like the first two episodes felt like that would have been a whole book. I was kind of surprised it shifted the way it did from episode 2 to 3. I'll be curious to see if what the book has in it. In comparison,
it has quite a lot of shifts. That's what I'll say. It's the series does have a lot of shifts right up to the very end.
Oh yeah, and right from the bat, like characters having kind of a dream type sequence, and you learn really quick that this is going to be a little different because it shifts from like a black and white world. I guess it was supposed to be World War II. I'm not really sure what war it was supposed to be. He didn't fight in World War II though, but
I think it's probably after the Korean War.
I guess so. Did they have ditch fighting in Korean War though? That's why I wasn't sure. Or trenches, but whichever war it was black and white and showing the character fighting, and then then it shifts into weird alien princess hovering and alien ships and monsters attacking. And it's like, okay, well, this is going to be a little different, whatever it is. Even if it's a dream, you get a hint that this is going to be pretty crazy, and it lives up to that. So
yeah, I think at the time he was having that dream, he was actually reading. He's reading The Princess of Mars.
That's right. So there was elements of that in there. Yeah. So that was those two that maybe a little more influence for Julie. And then the only reason I say that is because she doesn't like horror, but she's enjoying Lovecraft Country. So it's a little odd for her. All right. So another one on my two, I'll say, is The Boys season 2. I've been really enjoying The Boys.
Oh yeah, this is one that me and Ben can both come in on because we both enjoy The Boys.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think The Boys season 1 was great. It was so different from other superhero shows. Kind of deconstructing that kind of genre, and I think they continued it really well. And while continuing on what was in season 1, but then shifting in some new directions that we might not have expected. And of course, a big surprises at the end. Homelander has become kind of an iconic character now, like that's showing up in parodies and memes all the time, right? So, and there's a lot of TV shows that can't say they can pull that off. And so I think that's great. And I love all the commentary that they have in it. I love, how crazy it is, and Butcher and all those characters, including all the superheroes. are just really interesting characters where I really want to see what happens to them, and I can't wait for season 3.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens to the Deep in season 3 because that guy is messed up.
Right? I love the sequence where he's singing with his gills, right? Because he was high.
It's just not just that because the Deep's probably feeling proper screwed over from that religious organisation he joined by the fact that that the other one was it the speedster, what's his name, he joined the organisation and he does something pretty much out of line with what this organisation is demanding of them, and yet he gets promoted back up to the 7.
Yeah, and that's cool. That's obviously some kind of reference to Scientology, and then you got a lot of references to corporations and and celebrity worship and stuff in our culture, and in foreign warfare and stuff like that. And of course, commentary on alt-right and misinformation on the web, So I think they've kept a lot of major elements of the comic books, the graphic novels, but they've updated it. And I think all the choices they've made that are different from the graphic novel have all been good choices for it. Because the graphic novel, for one thing, it's a different time, or slightly different time than where we're at right now in history. And so they need some changes for that. And then also, it gets a little too extreme for my tastes. And I think they tone it down just enough for television where it's still pretty crazy for TV, but not so crazy that it's going to get banned by multiple groups of people.
I don't know if they'd shown the original ending that they had in mind for season 2. I think it could have well have potentially got itself banned.
Yeah, I mean, it just, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. And they've done, there's major things that they changed, right? Like, Homelander's son didn't exist in the graphic novel, and the wife of Butcher wasn't alive in the graphic novel. So they've taken bold choices to take it in new directions, and I think were really well done. Eric Kripke, I love Eric Kripke from, he creates Supernatural, loves Supernatural, which sadly wrapped up this year. But it had a great run, right? 15 years is good in anybody's book.
It's got to be a record for the longest horror series.
Definitely for horror, yeah. But I think even sci-fi fantasy, it might be, if you don't count Doctor Who, of course, it might be a record. I always say that for Doctor Who because, they got that, they switched around. I don't know. It's got a unique way of counting the numbers.
Well, they actually tried to make Stargate the longest running show on television a number of years back. And the writers of Doctor Who came in and said, well, Doctor Who ran for 17 consecutive years without going off air.
Yeah.
Whereas, in fact, it didn't. It only ran for sort of like perhaps 15 consecutive years without going off air because they took it off air for 18 months in the 80s because the head of the BBC tried to have the show scrapped and didn't succeed until he did get it scrapped in 1989.
Well, anyway, 15 years, Supernatural, pretty impressive run. So. But and Eric Kripke did Revolution after that, which unfortunately did not do quite as well, and whatever else after that. And then I think he finally got a hit with The Boys. So we got Jensen Ackles coming in season 3. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
I mean, I don't think any other show that I've seen. Fair enough. I don't live in America. I live in the UK. I'm not from America. I wasn't born there. But if you read the news, you sort of know what's going on with corporate America and sort of like the sort of various factions within the Republicans and the Democrats and the whole Trump movement and the rise of the alt-right. I don't think there's any other show that's quite as brilliantly topical as The Boys. Not in the same way, anyway. I think not only does it do that, but it doesn't do that at the expense of telling a really entertaining story either, which you run the risk of doing when you do that. It's I didn't know how it was going to follow up from being such a groundbreaking first series because I think in today's day and age, it's very hard to break the mold. So much has been done, and The Boys really did. The Boys was something completely new, and there was always that fear of the second series never going to have quite the same impact. But it's done a really fantastic job of establishing it as one of like the shows to watch, I think.
For sure, Supergirl, for example, does try to tackle certain commentary issues, but I think they do not do it as well, and it tends to be a little bit like overdone, like it's too obvious.
It tends to be very, very woke.
Yeah, it could be labeled that, right? And it'd be a turnoff for people. It's definitely a big turnoff for anybody who might disagree with it, and then you're not sharing your message or helping them see a different angle because they'll just quit watching it, right? But then
quite a turnoff for me, and I'm not necessarily the person that disagrees with it.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with just about everything that they're trying to say, but it's so like hammering you over the head with it, and it's so it's not done. It also hurts the story. Like it's forced in there, or it doesn't feel organic for the story. That it is a turnoff, because even though I agree with a lot of them, like, come on, guys, seriously, it's like
people don't need to have the mind forced. Most people who watch the show are against all the stuff that it's saying and agree that there's a lot of social injustices and underrepresentation and it's wrong. It doesn't need to be, you have to think this, because most people do that. Whereas with The Boys, what it does is just present that it's going on. It doesn't sort of tell you that it's bad one way or another. Whereas Supergirl, by the sounds of it, given I haven't watched it, tends to say, isn't this terrible? Oh my God. Whereas The Boys leaves you to make your own conclusions and respects the intelligence of the viewers,
Yeah. And I think that's the best way to do. I think stories should have some social commentary in it. It should have some, deeper meaning to it. But you want to trust that your audience can see. If you present different sides, different angles, that they will see, they'll get the lesson out of it, rather than just tell them what they must think, and because they don't react, people don't react well to that, even if they agree to it, and it removes some of the magic behind the screen, or the magic in the storytelling, because you start seeing the writer behind it, like telling you something.
There's no nuance to the characters. There's no sort of like, the characters are wafer thin because they're basically just politicking what
it's just virtue signaling, isn't it? It's virtue signaling taken to the extreme.
And that's exactly it.
Yeah, it's just taken too much to the extreme, and which is unfortunate, because there's good messages in Supergirl. It's just too much. Well, and you can just see there's other things too. I have a problem with Supergirl. Like, there's a lot of good episodes and things about Supergirl, but they have a lot of plot holes and other things in it that frustrate me. But anyway, we can talk about that later. So the last one is, of course, what we mentioned before, The Mandalorian, which is on right now, and we've been really enjoying it. What's really great right now is we're like, Thursdays is Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Thursdays, and then Friday is Star Wars Friday.
Fridays.
Yeah, and it's like, could you ever imagine like a decade ago that you would ever be able to say that? Be like, yeah, Star Trek Thursday and Star Wars Fridays, woo,
Oh. You'd kind of be lucky if it was Star Trek Thursdays,
And I can't wait till there's Marvel shows, so then I could say Marvel Wednesdays or whatever day it is.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely coming up in our most anticipated stuff of 2021.
Yes.
Mandalorian, it's rocking it out of the park. I love the, I'm not really a big fan of Katie Sackhoff, but I thought she was fantastic as Bo-Katan. I think she did a brilliant job of bringing her animated character to live action, but I absolutely loved Rosario Dawson, who I'm still crushing on to this very day. Since first seeing her in the in one of the Kevin Smith movies, I think it was Clerks 2. I seen her in the first time I seen her, and I've been crushing on her ever since then. But I thought she was absolutely brilliant as Ahsoka Tano.
Oh yeah.
She kind of got that character bring. Yeah, I kind of loved. I'm really loving how they're tying in elements of Rebels, and I'm kind of waiting for them to bring Sabine Wren into the fold, and but it's just awesome. We've got Boba Fett, and just seeing Boba Fett sort of like it's like Boba Fett's on a bit of a redemption arc at the moment.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I love how they're tying together. Like I never watched all of Clone Wars, and I only watched a little bit of Rebels, but now that they've tied it so well to those characters, now now I gotta watch them. So
yeah, you gotta go back now and watch them.
We're watching Clone Wars right now, and working our way up. So, because at first I was like, I don't know. I mean, the Clone Wars time period is not one of my favorite time periods of Star Wars.
No, mine either. But the animated series, it's got a lot more nuance to it. The acting's better, the characterizations are better. And I've got to tell you, I love Ahsoka Tano, but I absolutely hated her to begin with. I thought she was so annoying. in the first season of Clone Wars. I thought she was so annoying. I was thinking, please, someone decapitated with a lightsaber fast. But she kind of grew. She kind of grew up. You kind of sort of like see that character's evolution as she grows up to become what you see in the in the Mandalorian sort of thing.
Yeah, and now she's going to get her own live action series spinning out of Mandalorian. As well, another spinoff, the Rangers of whatever, I can't remember what it's called now. But
you've got the Bad Batch coming, which is a new animated series, which is I think that's set in the Clone Wars, or certainly after they introduced the Bad Batch in this year's final season of Clone Wars, and they're basically a group of clone troopers, but they've all got their own wild personalities, as in one of them just likes blowing shit up. They've all got very, very distinct personalities, and they're very, 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 very kind of like the A-Team on steroids, but done Star Wars. But unlike the A-Team, they actually hit their targets.
Star Wars now, I think, is in the right direction, and it's taking great use of the franchise material, and doesn't try to like Star Trek wanted to just rewrite everything instead of build on all the stuff they had, and I think they finally figured out that was a bad idea, right? And they're getting it in place, and Star Wars now is kind of got that vibe, and it's got everything working really well between all the different shows or movies and animated. And with these spinoffs, I think it's going to be really awesome. And I also love that they're starting to pull stuff or they have been pulling stuff from the Legends line that got decanonized, and trying to kind of bring in elements of that back.
I'm just enjoying the hangout of Mandalorian because I know that as long as Dave Filoni and the other guy, what's the other guy's name? Jon Favreau are working together, and I know that whatever those two do, it's going to be good. And there's other great talent behind me. Bryce Dallas Howard, she's definitely taking after her father when it comes to directing and stuff like that, because the episode she's directed have been awesome. Mm-hmm. As well as what is his name, Taiko Waititi or something. His name, he's done awesome episodes. It's just sort of like the creative talent behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera on that series is just awesome.
Yeah, I think they, the Prelude trilogy I hated, for various reasons, and Star Wars, and then the new trilogy, I liked parts of it, but it didn't land quite well. You could tell there was a creative battle going on between J.J. Abrams' vision and then I forgot the name of the director in the second film, and that caused a bit of a disjointness because this third final movie felt weird. Like it just didn't feel like the whole trilogy flowed together very well.
It's odd. I mean, I watched all the films at the cinema, the sequel trilogy, and I went away and I loved them. Yeah, mm-hmm. But upon second viewing, they don't hold up anywhere near as well. The second one that they made with can't remember, Ryan Johnson, I think it is.
Yeah, that's who I was trying to think.
The plot of that was so full of fucking logic holes. I mean, you had the world's slowest space chase, which took about 2.5 fucking hours. And had I written that film, I would have had the Empire had the advantage. They had a huge advantage. All they needed to do really was send a few ships right up ahead and cut them off at the other end and blow them out of the fucking sky. But instead, they just sort of we'll just let them run and and blast them from a distance and all this and and give them all this time, And I just thought, in what fucking universe does that make any sort of logical sense? I'm sorry, but it just doesn't.
No, it was weird for a Star Wars series. I could see Star Trek doing something like that, but it didn't fit Star Wars. Yeah, the second movie I think took some, didn't pick up from the first movie as well as it should have, and then they tried to course correct in the third movie, and it just made it all feel kind of weird.
I think Abrams kind of overcompensated in the third movie.
I think he did,
a way. And and it was very, very, it was just too obvious that he was trying his hardest to make up for the disappointment that so many fans had in the second film.
Yeah, it's tough. In a trilogy, you got to make sure sure there's a unified vision for that whole trilogy for it to all play well together. It's not like separate individual movies and like a long series like Star Trek, for example, where you can drastically change, what's going on in each movie and it feel okay. One could be a comedy type one and one could be really dark. You can't do that with a trilogy. It's gotta all flow together well. All the storylines have to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's so sad because with Star Wars, like, it almost felt with those movies at times that it's like it doesn't matter what you make. If people go and see it, it's Star Wars, never mind. And that is what it felt like at times. Us three seem to share very similar views about, why we didn't like them from what I listened to what you and Ian have said. But I suppose my input is, at least I did feel that the last half of the last movie gave a really sort of strong ending to those 9 films, despite what I think about the Millennium Trilogy, as I call it, But at least we got a proper Star Wars moment, and I was really chuffed when I sat in the cinema and I just got to see a really massive sort of battle and, just a simple good guys versus bad guys adventure. And that's really what cinematic Star Wars sort of people, I think, works best. Yeah, we need to complexify things more. But in a series, you've got a scope to tell that. But in a film series, you don't really have that. Even 3 films of 2.5 hours each, you can't go into anywhere as much depth as you can with a series. So yeah, at least they sort of redeemed it in the last 45 minutes, and you did get to see something that was quite heartwarming and an emotional end to a sort of a sequel, I suppose. That's like an end to a story, nearly 50 years in the making.
Yeah, it's
you make me feel old. Well, before we move on to the worst of the year, I want to do a very, very quick honourable mention for something that's just come into mind. And basically, Marx, your pick of Julie's pick of The Good Place kind of reminded me about this. But there was a show that aired on Amazon Prime. It came out sort of around about Easter time. It was called Upload, and it was based about a guy. He has his consciousness uploaded into this virtual world where all dead people go and they have their consciousness uploaded to this sort of virtual reality like hotel where it's all 5-star and stuff like that. And it was kind of funny. It was again like The Good Place. It was very, very philosophical. Because it was asking. There's one episode where they're asking the question of is it really right that you should be able to have our consciousness uploaded into this sort of like virtual sort of like ongoing version of life, as opposed to sort of like transcending into whatever we're supposed to transcend to and stuff like that. It asked a lot of really, really interesting questions, and it stars Robbie Amell, Stephen Amell's cousin, and it's kind of a comedy. It's very, very similar in a sense to The Good Place, but kind of different as well. And the much of it's about the relationship he forms with the IT person that's sort of like his sort of like guardian angel in the show sort of thing, and the relationship he has with his girlfriend who's still out in the real world, and the difficulties he's having to adapting to sort of like living this sort of like afterlife that he suddenly finds himself thrown into. It's quite a funny series. It's only 10 episodes, I think, but it was actually quite a good one.
Yeah. Julie and I watched that and really enjoyed it too. It's a good show. Definitely check out. I'm looking forward to season 2. It's also got like a murder mystery element to it also, and like how he died is a bit of a mystery, and what happened behind that death, and I think that was really well done too. And there's a lot of funny stuff, and also there's social commentary in there too, without necessarily overkill on it, but like your heaven, your virtual heaven is as fancy as money you have in the bank, right? And so the rich have these amazing paradises they can live in, whatever they want, and the poor
only get 1 gig a month.
Yeah, they only get 1 gig a month, so they don't get much of anything. They're almost in a blank room the majority of the time. So that's an interesting angle they added in. It's definitely worth checking out.
But that's my honourable mention, because I was neglectful to mention that in my best pick. So we're going to start on the worst of the year, and again we'll kick off with you, Ben.
I definitely know what I think is the worst show of the year. The most disappointing was, without a doubt for me, Brave New World.
Oh yeah,
it's a show that I was really, really excited to watch and to review. I wouldn't say like I'm a massive sort of fan of Aldous Huxley. Yeah, I mean, I have read bits and bobs of his stuff, but it's a very important book, for a lot of reasons. I think, especially where we're living in now. And I was very excited for the series because for such an iconic story that's like, along with 1984, is like one of the dystopia, utopia. We'll say dystopia. We'll get onto whether or not Brave New World is a dystopia or not in a wee while, but I would definitely say that given how well regarded it is amongst fans and writers, we've not really seen anything in 100 years, So this was going to be the one that made it, and it was just a huge letdown. I just felt that there was no cerebral element to it. It was like watching a future version of Game of Thrones, but without the good bits of Game of Thrones. It was gaudy. The sex scenes were badly written. They were just tasteless. And it was just a crying shame that the whole crux of the story that I touched on a minute ago is, unlike 1984, largely the people in Brave New World appear to want it to be that way, and they've arrived at that place of the story world by apathy largely, and none of that really came through. It just didn't, and it was a crying shame.
And what's also a shame about it is the production values and the acting was superb. It's just so like the writing was,
it was woeful. That's the only word.
It didn't have any of the nuance you'd expect from production that's sort of like based on such a classic book.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I don't know if you've seen the show, the UK show, Marx, called Devs. If you haven't, apologies, I'm referring to something you may or may not have seen. But something like Devs, that's what it should have gone for in Brave New World, because Devs was a really, really smart show in that it explored morality and things. And Brave New World could have been the show to define our modern age and essentially built a pretty big franchise from it. And, given the story new, I don't say new life because it's never gone away, but it could have brought it majorly back into the mainstream because everything that's going on in the world today, we're a damn sight closer to the world of Brave New World in many ways than we are 1984. It's a more that thing that we were talking about, not to disrespect 1984, it's a fantastic book in its own way, but you very much know that you're in a dystopia and everything they're doing is morally wrong, and it's so strongly one-sided, whereas Brave New World is not like that at all. You can't call it a dystopia one way or another, and the whole point is ignorance bliss, and it doesn't answer that question, and that's what makes it great. But sadly, the show wasn't able to take the essence of that and make something good out of it.
Did you see it, man?
I haven't seen it. I think it's on Peacock Premium, and I have the free Peacock, but I haven't got the premium yet. I thought it looked interesting in the trailer, but I was kind of unsure if I would like it or not.
Yeah, I think the trailer just shows all the set bits, doesn't it?
That's what it went for, and that's what ruined it. It just went for a big flash fest, basically, and a big sort of. It just wanted to attract, because it was Peacock's first main show that essentially would have launched it as a competitor, which, it never was seriously going to compete with Netflix or Disney Plus, but yeah. That was its first sort of biggie, and they thought, right, and all it wanted to do is pull people in. It didn't care about doing the series sort of justice. And it's sad because you sort of think, they made one series, it's been cancelled. When are we going to get something else out of Brave New World now, which is a fantastic story to sort of explore?
I got bored, to be honest. I got bored after about once he went into their world. I got bored after a couple of episodes of that because it just didn't seem to be going anywhere.
I mean, we watched it sort of like more or less together, didn't we? Over that weekend, yeah. At any one time, one of us was one episode or two episodes behind the other. But we more or less watched it back to back at the same time, didn't we? And so we could discuss it. And, we both agreed that the pilot opened really strongly. And then after a couple of episodes, it was very, very clear that it was, like you said, Marx, I'm reluctant to sort of be negative about writers because maybe they do the best and they put what they feel the heart into it. But I can't find another word other than woeful. The writing was woeful at times, which is a crying shame.
Yeah. They kind of needed a lot more. So, like, what's the writing equivalent of Viagra? Because they needed the writing equivalent of that.
Or climaxes.
Yeah. Okay, well, for the worst of the year, I think we should just go with one choice each. Max, you get two, obvious, because you got Julie choice as well. My worst of the year is I'm gonna go the same again. Doctor Who.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I'm behind, so I haven't caught up. But now that I have HBO Max, I can. They have all Doctor Who on there, at least all the new ones.
Well, basically, they just need to, they need to do an episode, one of those meta episodes where the producer gets a part in the episode and somebody offs him, and that'll solve all the show's problems. It's become very woke.
Oh yeah.
But it's also he's reinvented Doctor Who, as in it's sort of like, apparently the first Doctor was not actually the first Doctor, because the first Doctor was actually another Doctor, which was female. Now, I'm not bothered about the fact that it was a female Doctor, and I'm just more bothered about the fact that he's kind of like taken the mystery out of the whole show by coming up with this backstory. The whole point of the show is it didn't have a fucking backstory. Why is it called Doctor Who? It's called Doctor Who because nobody actually knows who the Doctor really is.
Yep. There's a mystery of who he is.
The mystery of who he or she is, or if the Doctor regenerates into a dolphin the next season, or a dog, or a cat, or whatever, or a banana split. It was a mystery surrounding the character that was kind of like the appeal for me. The fact that you had this mad eccentric time travel going around the universe, saving the universe from week to week, and you didn't really know who that person was.
Yeah, and there are certain franchises where the mystery is kind of part of its success, right? Like when Star Wars started talking about midichlorians, we didn't like that. They got rid of that fast. Or Highlander 2, where they're like, they're aliens, and people didn't like that, so they changed that. There's just certain things where you're just like, don't answer questions that we don't want the answer to. It's part of the mystery is what we like about it.
Well, that's basically what Chibnall's done. Is kind of answered the question about who the Doctor is. We know that we kind of learn that it was because of the Doctor that the Time Lords actually became Time Lords, because they basically, the Doctor was experimented on, and parts of the Doctor's DNA went into the DNA of the people of Gallifrey, and that's how they became Time Lords and stuff like that. So basically saying that the Doctor is the premise for the creation of the Time Lords and all this stuff, and it just so like it's watered the show's premise down so much, and I think Ben probably agrees with me.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ian, and I'll sort of say more on that in a minute, but there seems to be a bit of a theme emerging here. I haven't seen Supergirl, but in certainly the first couple of seasons of Discovery, and maybe a bit with the third, but at the end of the day, you write a story and then you work the politics around it. It just doesn't work if you write a story primarily to include all these sort of, virtue signals, which I'm not saying they're not important. They are. But at the end of the day, when I was a kid growing up, I didn't care what was going on around the world when I watched Doctor Who. I just watched it because it was about a faraway person who was in space on an adventure. And that's what I wanted to watch. And, I'm not saying that you can't have topical elements in stuff and it doesn't work. As we've demonstrated, it can work, and it can work fantastically well in stuff like The Boys and even The Mandalorian, which, on my last podcast I talked about representation of sort of men as a mother figure. But anyway, I'm sidetracking. I couldn't agree more. And something that just occurred to me listening to what you've said, Ian, is why do this generation of Doctor Who viewers, why do they need an origin story for a character when the vast majority of them probably haven't even seen the older series anyway? All that's done is it's really alienated the older audience, and I don't understand why that's been done, because they're the ones that it's hurt, not the current.
Yeah, and they're the ones that kept it going when it was off the air all those years. That were part of the fact that it was so successful when it came back.
Yeah, it's an adventure show. It's an adventure show, and that's how it works best, and that's what it needs to be, really. You know what I mean? You don't need to, every single second of every single show, be screaming out, oh my God, this is going on, that's going on. And if you're having to do that, what it means is that you're not doing it well enough in your story that you're writing, so you're making up for it, and it's just bad writing.
Mm-hmm. But that's all I've got to say about Doctor Who. I don't really want to go further down the rabbit hole. Other than the fact
me too. I look forward to watching this Christmas. I watched the New Year's special, of course I will. and what happens, and let's hope that it sort of manages to redeem itself a little bit, or at least we can enjoy the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know yet if Dominic wants to review the New Year special or not, but if I review it, I'm just going to be so truthful about it.
Yeah, let's just be positive. Discovery changed its ways, so maybe, there is hope. Let's just see what happens and deal with it as it comes, I suppose, It's something that I just wanted to mention very, very quickly. Don't worry, I'm not being paid by BritBox, but anyone that's got time on the hands over Christmas, if you get a BritBox subscription, I don't know if you can get it in America. You might have to get a visual network protocol, whatever they are. I don't know. I'm not tech.
We have BritBox streaming here, yeah.
Okay, well, if you get it, you can watch all of the old Doctor Who's, like every one that they've ever made that they've got available, the ones that weren't rubbed, right up until the Sylvester McCoy ones. I don't think the new ones are included in it, although they might be. But that's one of the great selling points about BritBox is you can watch all the old shows, and that's something that I'm going to be looking forward to doing, is watching a lot of the Tom Baker ones and Colin Baker ones and Sylvester McCoy, I think, over Christmas.
Well, my worst of the year is Doctor Who, and with that note, it's over to you, Max.
I do have one that I was disappointed in. War of the Worlds, the new War of the Worlds series. That was
that was 2019, but I do.
Well, it was new for me.
Well, I think it was 2019 in England, but it came out in 2020 where you are. So
okay.
Like this time last year, that Ian. So did maybe was it not over Christmas, New Year, that, or just before?
It was shown just before Christmas last year.
Right.
Yeah, and it went on Epix, and I got an Epix, free month or not free month, but a reduced amount, and I binged that. We binged that and Pennyworth because we never had watched all season 1 of Pennyworth. So yeah, maybe I'm not sure. I thought it came out this year because I think it was newer for Epix, but maybe I'm wrong. But it was new for us, and I was disappointed because I was just like, where are the giant tripods and stuff?
Yeah.
I was like, what makes this War of the Worlds? Is this alien invasion story? It's like it's got almost nothing related to it.
Yeah, and it's all right. Again, it deviates too much from the book by making the strong female character the lead and making the actual traditional leading character a bit of a bore.
Yeah, and I think it's ironic that the American woman killed 2 of those robot dogs, whereas all these soldiers could not kill anything. So I thought that was funny, but yeah, it just deviated too much, and it's and there's something in there's some social commentary they're trying to say, and I think I know what they're trying to say, but it's kind of tough to know for sure until you see more, because it ends on a cliffhanger, and I don't know. I thought the first episode was very slow at first until the invasion began, and then I was like, this is interesting, and then the second episode we got those. I think that's when they either introduced second or third. They introduced the drone kind of 4-legged robot things, and I thought, oh cool, so they're going to introduce something new every couple episodes, great, and then they didn't introduce anything else after that, and I don't know, some of the characters weren't very likable. The pacing was kind of slow. I didn't understand why those drone robots are not. We almost have that technology now, right? We have robots that are working on that just like that. Just a matter of arming them and making them a little bit better, and boom, you got it. And I know they're partly organic, but still, that's not very advanced technology, which one of the characters says himself. So I'm a little confused about what they're trying to do with the aliens in this. And I'm confused what makes it War of the Worlds. It's so dramatically different. I reread War of the Worlds recently for my MFA program, a year ago or so, for the sci-fi science fiction genre study. And I was just disappointed there was so little in common with it. Didn't have any of the poison gas, the giant tripods with their death rays. You can use better names than that, but for now. But
and you didn't have enough of the mad pastor either, the mad priest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was interesting. You could do a whole episode on something like that. And
Parson Nathaniel, I think he was called, was he now?
Yeah, Parson Nathaniel. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of elements that they could have used or updated for War of the Worlds. And I know Mars is unlikely to have any alien life like that, but you can change the planet. That's cool. But, it just was too dramatically different to be called War of the Worlds.
You are aware Elon Musk is from Mars.
Explains so much.
Elon Musk is time traveling from Mars. That's why he's so desperate to get back out there.
Yeah, I never saw the show because I heard bad things about it, and as you say, Marx, there's so many things to watch now that I just thought, oh, I'll get around to watching it. I never did, but it's a shame that it turned out that way because, the Tom Cruise movie is not a bad movie, right? It's not great by any stretch of the imagination, in my opinion, but that did a pretty good job of it. That modernised a lot of the stuff and sort of took key themes and told the story with those in mind, whereas by the sounds of it, this didn't do that.
But yeah, we've had the worst with Your War of the Worlds. Ben, you chose Brave New World. I chose Dot 2. So now on to the bit about things we're looking forward to. Over to you, Ben.
I think I'm going to start with movies, because I mean, it's a few series that are starting, but mostly with series, it's stuff that's, it's stuff like Doom Patrol, stuff like Pennyworth and all that, which I've covered, and it's more about looking forward to the new series that's coming of it. Whereas I think the big one to talk about is the movies, which I'm a big sort of cinema goer. I was going until they close like twice a week. I won't always go if there's nothing I want to see. But yeah, I love going to the movies, and I've missed it sort of massively in my life. It's one of the big things that I enjoy doing. And I think the big one that I'm looking forward to, probably more than anything else, which is a bold statement because there's some major movies that have been delayed, but the new James Bond film is the one that I can't wait to sort of go and see Daniel Craig's last outing as James Bond, and that will be especially because the vaccine's here and all that. That'll be one where once everything starts opening back up, I can't wait to see it. I think for some reason because it is his last outing. And I think he's had such a fantastic arc of James Bond, which no other actor has in the same sense. They've all had aspects of the characters they've explored. But Daniel Craig's, it's almost a soft reboot of the franchise for me. I don't know about, I know Ian, you are you a fan of the Bond franchise, Marx?
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, I watch all the Bond movies. They do blur together after a while, but the reboot, I think, helped re-energize it, and I'm curious to see what they do.
I enjoyed the Brooke Bond movies. You ever seen them?
What movies?
The Brooke Bond movies.
Is that not the maker of tea, Brooke Bond?
Yeah, the advertising campaign for the Brooke Bond tea bags back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, it was all chimpanzees, and I think they did do sort of like a James Bond parody with one of them. Chimpanzees. Yeah, so I was saying with you.
I think another thing with the James Bond thing is, there's the movie and everything like that, but the whole thing has always been pretty much that James Bond, oh my God, he's going to save the world, and in Daniel Craig's movies, he's not really done that apart from in Spectre because it's more been rebuilding him. Whereas this one, it's definitely going to be Bond saves the world. And with the year that we've had, if ever there was a time to sort of watch a movie about the world being saved, it's now. And I really do think it'll just be a fantastic experience to go there, to think we've got the vaccine now, the world's getting back on track, and I'm really sort of massively excited, and I will splash out and go to the IMAX for that one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go with my sister because since Daniel Craig took over as Bond, me and my sister have been going. We go see all the action films together. Me and my sister. We go see the new Mission Impossible films, the new James Bond films. Or any other action film that comes out that we both fancy, because we both love our action movies. But my sister can't stand sci-fi. She can't stand fantasy and comic book movies. But the one thing we do have in common is action movies. So we kind of enjoy those together.
Good. I mean, there's a ton of other movies that I'm looking forward to, but I don't want to take all the spots. I feel a bit like I was privileged to go first with the series, and I was conscious of stepping on people's toes with what would be my favourite series. So I'm going to stick with Bond now, and then I don't know if you guys sort of want to come in and give one of yours so that I don't end up saying maybe another of the movies that one of you were planning on saying,
Okay, well, I'll go now. I'm looking forward to the Winter Soldier. Is it Hawkman, Winter Soldier?
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that. I've not seen the trailer for it yet, although I do know it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's dropped today.
I think it dropped yesterday, actually. I've just not got around to it.
Yeah, I saw it yesterday.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that because I love Sebastian Stan's take on the Winter Soldier. Really good character, and I also is it somebody Mackie that plays Falcon?
Anthony Mackie.
Anthony Mackie. I love what he did with Falcon. I mean, I kind of love the way Falcon was introduced in the opening scene of Captain America when he was running and he outruns Falcon sort of thing, and that. Yeah, I just saw like that those characters are just really good, and I'm just really looking forward to it. And I'm kind of hoping it's sort of like a superhero sort of spy series where they go out on missions and do loads and loads of wild shit. I just can't wait to see it.
I'm looking forward to that one too, Ian, myself.
Yeah, me too. So you pick one?
Well, you got one for you and one for Julie.
Okay. So for new stuff, I think I'm really curious about the Loki series. I think that's going to be a really interesting show. I mean, I think all the Marvel shows are going to be great because I love that they're going to blend together the TV universe with the cinematic universe more so. I think that's the future for franchises, including Star Wars, where you can, like, you're a diehard fan, you can watch TV shows and get more out of the universe. And if you're not a diehard fan, you just watch the movies, and as long as they do those movies right, it's fine. Stuff happen in between. You'll be fine if you don't watch it necessarily. And I think that's going to be a great dynamic for Marvel and for Star Wars. And I've been very curious about Loki for a long time, and including in the anime What If will be nice because I always loved the What If comic books also.
I'm actually looking forward to that slightly more than I am the live action series for some reason. I think it's just the animation style, but it's also the fact that we get to see more Agent Carter. Mm-hmm. I really felt bad for that series, Agent Carter, being cancelled so soon. They could have gone so many places with that, and I think Haley Atwell's just brilliant as Agent Carter, and I just want I want that character to live on as much as possible. So
it was nice in the last series of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that fair enough Haley Atwell wasn't in it, but they sort of gave her a bit of homage, which I felt was really cool, and it was really good that they sort of said what a shame the series didn't go anywhere, and I thought that was a really nice touch when can't remember the character's name now.
Yeah, they brought Agent D'Souza into it from Agent Carter.
Mm. Yeah, that's it, and it was a shame about that series, but I think all the Marvel stuff is going to be phenomenal. And again, I know I'm sort of like making the same point, but the friend of mine I was talking to was talking about saturation. Point is, somebody's going to make these stories eventually, so it might as well be someone who does a good job of it. That's my view.
Yeah. But yeah, Marvel's great. DC, of course, has stumbled. They got their own thing going on. I don't know. But they have a lot of really great things in pockets like Doom Patrol and other stuff. They just can't quite get that shared universe to work.
I know, something that this just reminded me something that you were saying, Ian, a few weeks ago, a month ago. We'll lose track of time with the buddy.
Oh God, I can't remember that far back.
But anyway, you were sort of saying, and this is a point that I think is a good time to raise. And you were talking about potentially Dune being the next big franchise, and with yourself, Marx, as well, being so sort of like involved in the film industry, such a big fan of. What are you guys making of this news about the decision to simultaneously stream things and have it at the cinema? Because I think that's a point we really should discuss,
I think it's a good thing so long as they start doing it in the UK as well. Because with Wonder Woman, they're getting it in the US on HBO Max, and they're going to get it in the cinemas at the same time. But over here, to see Wonder Woman, you've got to go to the cinema, because Amazon's not picking up, sort of thing. So I think it's a good thing so long as they find a workable model for it to work in other territories other than the US.
Yeah, I imagine after the pandemic, they'll do some kind of hybrid version of that instead of every movie being launched that way. It did motivate me to go ahead and get HBO Max, knowing that Wonder Woman's coming out in Christmas time on HBO Max. I'm like, that makes it worth it right there for me. And but I do think movies like Wonder Woman, Dune, Matrix 4, stuff like that, the big budget, high action stuff, I think they still have a future in theaters. I think that they work great on the big screen. It's the more quiet movies that they're more dramas or romance or something that I think going straight to streaming might be the best option for that. So it's going to be an interesting experiment, and based on how well it does, we'll probably change the approach by all the other streaming ones too.
I mean, I think the other thing is many people now have good enough home entertainment systems where they've virtually got a small scale cinema in the front room,
Mm-hmm.
with sound and stuff like that. So there's many people that probably just don't go to the cinema. I mean, I think if you go into the cinema still, you're a real movie aficionado. Because I only really go about 2-3 times a year to the cinema.
Yeah.
I'm not as frequent as Ben is.
I only go now if it's a Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie. It's pretty unlikely I'll go to anything else unless something else something else comes along. It's so amazing. But otherwise, I'm good to wait a few months to watch it at home.
I think on a final note, before we finish up for the evening, I think there's one more honourable mention. I think this honourable mention is something that we're probably all looking forward to, and the reason it's an honourable mention is because none of us could be bothered to actually mention it. But Star Trek: Strange New Worlds is probably coming out later next year. I think we're going to start filming in around about February of this year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with that. Given that it's 10 years before Kirk sort of thing, and the Enterprise under Pike and Number One and Mr. Spock and the adventures that they have. I'm quite looking forward to seeing that and seeing how that turns out, and seeing if they manage to actually stick to the canon this time.
Yeah, that's the big challenge there, is whether they can make that work. I'm excited to see it because I love those characters were great in season 2 of Discovery. So I'm hopeful. I'm hoping, and this is something they wanted to do, but it's been held back because the pandemic messed up the production. But they want to have, when I say want, I mean CBS All Access. They want to have like one new Star Trek episode of something every week. So that way people will stick with the app. And I think I would love to see that, as long as they're good shows, obviously. Because I think I would love to see Brave New World, Picard, Discovery. I enjoy Lower Decks too.
I enjoyed Lower Decks as well. I had my issues with it starting, and I thought, oh, what's it going to be like? I wasn't mad on the animation style, but once you get over yourself and you watch the show for what it is on its own terms, it's a very well-written show. It's a very smart show.
Yeah, I actually asked Ben to review Lower Decks because I couldn't be bothered.
It's fun, and they do make a lot of Star Trek canon references. They know their stuff.
I mean, was it 10 episodes rather? First series? I can't remember. I think
that
it's
sounds
10
right.
episodes. But I've got them all. So
it's 10 episodes, and in the run of 10 episodes, there was maybe 2 that were weaker. But you can't if you're going to review something and you're going to watch it and you're going to think about it, you can't constantly say the show isn't this. You've got to watch something on its own terms and assess it for what it is, not what you want it to be. And once you start doing that with Lower Decks, in a 25-minute episode, it does a hell of a lot, and the writing's really, really up there for me.
Yeah, there's some really great episodes in there. It's got some cool ideas. And Q made an appearance, just saying.
And Riker and Troy did as well in the last episode, I think.
That's right, yeah.
It feels like the big important thing about Lower Decks is it's not laughing at the fans, it asks you to laugh with it. And that's really important, especially for sort of older Star Trek fans, I feel. It really respects the canon. It doesn't sort of take it and condescend it.
Yeah, but you're probably still going to find quite a lot of old Star Trek fans saying, it's not Star Trek. Star Trek isn't a comedy. It's not a comedy, man. I'm not going to watch this show. It's not a comedy. I do want to watch it. Star Trek is not funny, okay? It's serious.
Yeah.
It's serious, man.
Just leave him to it, because haters going to hate, eh?
Yeah, I think it's nice. It mixes up the tone a little bit, and it's a nice little break from the heavier stuff.
I'm not ashamed to say I'm looking forward to the second series of it,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I think they got a chance here, their Star Trek, to really have, because honestly, to be honest, CBS All Access, for me, it's really Star Trek. When they don't have Star Trek, I don't need the app, and I think I told them that when I canceled it one time. I just said, have more Star Trek and I'll be there. Otherwise, I don't care.
I mean, because they've got like other shows coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're going to get more good stuff, and especially now with I guess it's going to become Paramount Plus. But like the Twilight Zone, gosh, I want to like that show, the new Twilight Zone, but it's just there's always something that makes me go, ugh. Each episode, there's just something they mess up really bad that just doesn't feel like, like a strong anthology episode of something. And it's really Star Trek is all it's been keeping me on CBS All Access so far.
I think the thing is, because Star Trek's going to various places, Strange New World, Section 31, all that stuff, there wasn't really room for anything else. So, I think Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks has filled the gap. It fits in nicely because it doesn't have to worry about where it's going to fit into the rest of the story. It just happens alongside everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The thing is, Star Trek is such a rich and vast universe that there's so much for them to explore, irrespective of what decade it's in. I mean, I'd love to see an anthology series about the Andorian Syndicate, and they could call it Stories from the Andorian Syndicate. I think that'd be really interesting. Exploring the Star Trek underworld.
Yeah, well, they do a little bit, right? With the Star Trek shorts, they do explore a lot of different kinds of stories in that.
I mean, you might get some of that stuff in Strange New Worlds, and you never know. And I think what's good about Strange New Worlds already, even though Dean's really great article sort of like highlighted a few concerns, the premise of the show's been set up really well by the way that Discovery season 2 ended. That they've segued into that series by isolating the crew of Discovery, putting them in the future, and then making Spock, Kirk, and number one.
Pike and number one, deny our knowledge.
Spock, Pike, and number one, not Kirk. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. You know what I mean? They've set that up really, really well. And I just hope it goes with a more traditional sort of problem of the week, sort of, I don't want to say light-hearted, but, I don't think we need any more extreme drama like Discovery for the time being with Star Trek. I think we just need to see some traditional fun.
I mean, I'm fine with it being, episode and bad guy of the week sort of thing, but I think, they're probably cutting the noses off to spite the face in a way. Because, they could do something like a compromise between a story arc and an episode of the week. Like Enterprise did with the final season, where they had a couple of 2-parters and a couple of 3-parters, and
Discovery's starting to do that, I think, a bit. Discovery's this season has got a good balance of arc, and there has been more of a problem with the week sort of feel to some of them, and they are starting to realise that, I don't think the Star Trek fan community will ever wholly buy in if there's never some sort of like problem solution in an episode.
That's probably a good note to wrap up on, but I think general consensus is we're all looking forward to next year's stuff, especially Strange New Worlds and James Bond and Falcon and Winter Soldier are all things we're looking forward to. So
listeners can look forward to getting regular reviews as well from films. Because as I say, I do normally go to cinema once or twice a week, and if it's anything sci-fi related, even if I don't particularly fancy it, I'll normally go. So I'm looking forward to getting, more film reviews written, because I've sort of missed doing those. I've been concentrating more on the series because there's not been any movies out. So yeah, I will be back as sort of regular sort of film reviewing next year, hopefully.
Yeah.
And on that final note, we'd like to wish you all a Happy New Year. Because we're
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and all that stuff.
Yep, don't get too drunk. Instead, get completely levered.
Merry Christmas, live long and prosper.
Yes, live long and prosper.
Don't die coronavirus. Right, see ya, bye.
See you guys.